When the TBF Avenger first appeared in the Pacific, Japanese pilots didn't see a deadly weapon. They saw a flying barn door, too big, too heavy, and far too slow. To them, it looked like an easy kill, not a war machine. Yet beneath its bulky frame was something that would redefine carrier warfare forever. If you think Japan's first impressions were dismissive, wait until you hear what shocked them next. When Grumman's TBF Avenger entered service in 1942, Japan's intelligence officers and pilots scoffed. They were accustomed to sleek, nimble aircraft like the Zero, which danced circles around opponents. The Avenger, by contrast, looked like a bloated target. It stretched over 40 feet in length, with a wingspan of more than 50 feet, and fully loaded, it weighed nearly twice as much as Japan's frontline fighters. To Japanese eyes, this wasn't a predator. It was prey. Early intelligence reports written by Japanese analysts dismissed the Avenger as clumsy and unsuited for survival in the fast-paced skies of the Pacific. Even in intercepted American propaganda, its size and role as a torpedo bomber seemed to confirm their assumptions. Slow, heavy, and vulnerable were the words attached to the TBF in many reports. Pilots believed that any Avenger attempting to attack a carrier would be shredded long before reaching torpedo range. And in the beginning, those assumptions seemed correct. At the Battle of Midway in June 1942, Avengers launched their first combat missions against Japanese carriers. The results were catastrophic. Of the 15 Avengers that went into action, only a handful returned. To the Japanese, it appeared that their initial assessment had been right. Pilots described the Avenger as little more than cannon fodder, incapable of penetrating their defensive screens. Confidence swelled within the Imperial Navy. But what they didn't see, what they couldn't yet understand, was that the Avenger was built for more than a single battle. Its failures at Midway weren't because of design flaws, but because of tactical disadvantages and lack of coordination. As the war progressed, American crews learned how to use the Avenger's strengths effectively. And those strengths, once revealed, would force Japan to reevaluate everything they thought they knew about this supposed lumbering giant. The first cracks in Japan's confidence would appear when the Avenger showed capabilities no one had expected. If they thought Midway proved the Avenger was a failure, what happened in the following months would shake their certainty in devastating fashion. Japanese pilots were trained to exploit speed and agility. Against most enemies, their Zeros reigned supreme. But the Avenger introduced a new equation, one that Japan wasn't prepared for. Its massive Wright R2600 engine gave it remarkable range, over 1,000 miles when loaded with a torpedo. Suddenly, Japanese warships thought to be safe beyond the horizon found themselves vulnerable. An Avenger squadron could launch from a carrier and strike deep, far deeper than the Japanese had expected. The endurance wasn't just about distance, it was about survival. Japanese pilots discovered quickly that what they assumed would crumble under fire could absorb staggering punishment. Stories circulated of Avengers returning with engines shot out, fuselages torn, and wings peppered with holes, yet somehow still landing safely on their carriers. To Japanese airmen, used to fragile opponents, this resilience was unnerving. Shooting an Avenger down wasn't easy. It was a battle of attrition. One Japanese after-action report noted with frustration that Avengers continued their approach despite heavy fire, many crashing into the sea only after release. Even when destroyed, the Avengers' crews often completed their mission. For Japanese sailors, that meant torpedoes still streaking toward their ships, even as attackers perished. The equation of battle changed. Destroying the bomber didn't guarantee survival anymore. By 1943, Japanese strategists were forced to acknowledge the Avenger as more than a curiosity. Its ability to carry bombs as well as torpedoes made it a versatile weapon. American squadrons used it for anti-submarine patrols, ground attack missions, and precision strikes on shipping lanes. The longer the war went on, the more places the Avenger appeared, stretching Japanese defenses thin. The real shock, though, came not just from what the Avenger could carry or how far it could go, but from what it could withstand. In a war where agility had long been prized, Japan now faced an aircraft that proved raw durability and persistence could be just as lethal. And this was only the beginning, because soon the Avenger would show a level of lethality that made Japanese sailors dread the sight of its silhouette. The Avenger's true reputation was forged in 1943 and 1944, when it became the cornerstone of American carrier strikes. No longer dismissed, it was feared. Japanese forces began experiencing firsthand the devastating effectiveness of coordinated Avenger attacks. At the Battle of the Philippine Sea, hundreds of Avengers swarmed Japanese carriers and battleships. Their long-range torpedoes and bombs shredded the very heart of Japan's naval power. What shocked Japan wasn't just the volume of attacks, it was their precision. Avengers didn't dive recklessly like other aircraft. They pressed in low, often under heavy fire, and unleashed payloads that crippled or sank massive warships. Japanese crews noted bitterly that no matter how many Avengers they shot down, enough always seemed to make it through. The sinking of carriers like Hyo and Taiho cemented the Avenger's lethal reputation. The aircraft's adaptability also stung. Beyond torpedoes, Avengers could devastate supply convoys, shred tanks with bombs, and hunt submarines with depth charges. Japanese commanders, once confident in their naval superiority, now faced an aircraft that was eroding every pillar of their war machine. By late 1944, the word Avenger carried weight. For Japanese sailors, it meant danger approaching from beyond the horizon. For pilots, it meant facing an opponent that refused to break, no matter how much fire they poured into it. What truly unsettled them, though, was the psychological shift. At first, laughter and mockery had defined their opinion of the Avenger. Now, it was dread. Japan realized too late that the Americans had built a machine that didn't need to be fast or agile. It only needed to survive long enough to deliver devastation. And as the Pacific battles intensified, the Avenger would not just survive, but dominate. But the most shocking truth wasn't found in how Japan fought against the Avenger. It was in how, after years of war, they came to grudgingly respect it as one of the deadliest tools America had unleashed on the Pacific. And that respect carried an even deeper meaning. By 1944, Japanese pilots were no longer laughing at the Avenger. What unsettled them most was its ability to keep flying after taking punishment that would have destroyed almost any other aircraft. Zero pilots recalled frustration as they poured round after round into Avengers, only to watch them stubbornly continue their bombing runs. The TBF's armor protection for its crew and self-sealing fuel tanks gave it resilience far beyond what Japan was used to seeing. American reports often told of Avengers limping home with massive damage, engine oil spraying across the canopy, wings riddled with holes, and elevators barely functioning. For Japanese observers, this created a grim reality. Destroying the Avenger was never guaranteed. Even if they managed to cripple one, the torpedoes or bombs it carried might already be on their way. The psychological toll was immense. Japanese pilots realized that when facing Avengers, they weren't just fighting against planes, but against time. Naval crews also began to notice the problem. Unlike smaller, fragile attackers, Avengers demanded concentrated fire to bring down. That meant every available anti-aircraft gun had to focus on them, leaving other attackers free to slip through. Japan's defensive network, built to counter quick, fragile opponents, wasn't designed to stop something this durable. And once Avengers coordinated with fighters like the Hellcat, the pressure became unbearable. Japanese intelligence eventually admitted that the Avenger's survivability posed a serious threat to carrier operations. They even described it as a persistent attacker, one that absorbed losses without diminishing its effectiveness. For every Avenger shot down, another seemed to appear, equally dangerous, equally determined. This resilience slowly chipped away at Japanese morale, especially during night raids when Avengers dropped flares to guide further strikes. The lesson was painful. The Avenger wasn't designed to be untouchable. It was designed to outlast, and in war, endurance often mattered more than speed. Japanese pilots would soon discover that this resilience wasn't just a nuisance, it would help tip entire battles. And in those battles, the Avenger didn't just survive, it actively turned the tide. As the Pacific Campaign escalated, the Avenger became a decisive weapon in America's drive to dismantle Japanese naval strength. It was Avengers that hammered Japanese carriers and battleships during the Battle of the Philippine Sea in 1944, the infamous Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. While American Hellcats dominated the skies, Avengers dominated the seas, sinking or crippling capital ships with devastating torpedo runs. For Japanese sailors, the sight of Avengers approaching low over the waves struck fear. The knowledge that even a single torpedo could send a carrier to the bottom made these attacks especially demoralizing. Unlike fast dive bombers, which could sometimes be evaded, the slow, methodical approach of Avengers carried grim certainty. If they lined up on your ship, you were in real danger. Accounts from Japanese survivors reveal how Avengers became synonymous with destruction, their shadows on the horizon signaling catastrophe. What intensified the shock was their effectiveness in group formations. Coordinated strikes from dozens of Avengers overwhelmed defenses, saturating Japanese fleets with torpedoes and bombs. In battles like Leyte Gulf, these massed attacks crippled ships such as the Musashi, one of the largest battleships ever built. Even the legendary Yamato, the pride of Japan's navy, fell victim to relentless aerial assault, in which Avengers played a critical role. By late 1944, Japanese commanders could no longer dismiss the Avenger as a mere bomber. It had become a cornerstone of American strategy. Its flexibility allowed it to perform anti-submarine patrols, protect supply lines, and enforce blockades that strangled Japan's economy. Every time Japanese forces thought they could regroup, Avengers appeared again, reminding them that nowhere, on sea or shore, was safe. Yet what truly shocked Japanese analysts wasn't just the Avengers' role in individual battles, it was the realization that this one aircraft symbolized America's overwhelming industrial might. Japan couldn't match the numbers or the persistence, and the worst was yet to come, because the Avenger would soon demonstrate another dimension of its strength: adaptability beyond the seas. By the war's end, Japanese perception of the Avenger had undergone a complete transformation. What started as mockery ended as grudging respect. In captured reports and post-war interviews, Japanese officers admitted that the Avenger was one of the most formidable tools America had deployed. Its range, firepower, and resilience made it a nightmare to defend against. Even Zero Aces acknowledged that underestimating it had been a costly mistake. Japan learned that the Avenger wasn't designed to win dogfights, it was designed to win wars. Its versatility allowed it to switch roles seamlessly: torpedo bomber, level bomber, anti-submarine aircraft, even a reconnaissance platform. In the final months of the conflict, Avengers prowled Japan's shipping lanes, cut supply lines, and harassed the home islands with relentless raids. Every encounter reinforced a single truth: this was no clumsy giant, but a weapon of endurance and precision. Perhaps the most telling sign of its impact was psychological. Japanese sailors dreaded the drone of its engine, knowing it often heralded destruction. Pilots who had once dismissed it now treated it as a serious threat requiring immediate attention. The Avenger had carved its place not just in the skies, but in the minds of its enemies. For Japan, the shocking truth about the TBF Avenger was simple: it represented the future of aerial warfare. Speed and agility could win duels, but endurance, resilience, and devastating payloads could win campaigns. In the Pacific, the Avenger proved that lesson again and again until Japan's naval power lay in ruins. And yet, The Avenger's story didn't end in 1945. Its legacy continued to shape post-war aircraft design and naval doctrine for decades to come. But that, as you'll see, is a story that reaches far beyond the Pacific skies. From ridicule to respect, the TBF Avenger's journey shows how quickly war can rewrite first impressions. Japan learned the hard way that endurance and firepower could outweigh speed and finesse. The Avenger wasn't just a bomber, it was a symbol of persistence that reshaped the Pacific War. And if you think this story was revealing, wait until Heritage uncovers the next hidden truth from the skies of history.